Good morning, everyone. We're glad you're here. If this is your first time here at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Transylvania County, or your 100th and first time, we're glad you're here. If you carry the weight of a weary world on your shoulders, or you entered through the doors with a song in your heart and a skip in your step, we're glad you're here. If you are the loudest voice in the town square or the subtle hand behind the scenes, we're glad you're here. If you have failed once or 1,000 times, we're glad you're here. If you sing like angels or mumble behind the hymnal, we are glad you're here. This community is what it is because of your presence. So welcome into this space of love, support, justice, compassion, fellowship, and worship. We are glad you're here. A couple of announcements this morning. Actually, just one for right now. The UUTC Mountain Retreat is September 8th through 10th, and I understand it's a very wonderful time for this congregation to be together. So put it in your books, and we'll see you there. This flower communion is our 100th one, a celebration of the 100th anniversary of flower communion in the UUA. So I'm going to say a statement of grace for this communion by Reverend Sarah Scher. Some of you may be visiting for the first time today or did not know about today's flower communion. Though some have come without a flower, some have brought extra flowers, which you'll see on the floor right here. These are the extras. And if you have not given your flowers up here yet, please do so while we're doing this opening portion. Everyone is welcome and everyone can partake in this special ritual. Through some miracle, similar to the story of the loaves and the fishes, there are always flowers left over at the end of the flower communion. This is the grace of our church community. All may come forward and all may be served. We'll go into a quiet time or maybe a loud time for our joys and sorrows. Anyone? Jean.
My sister's husband is having two-way bypass surgery tomorrow at Maine Medical in Portland.
We wish him well with his recovery. Oh, yes.
It gives me great joy to be here on a Flower Sunday, and I'd like to share my joy because this flowers and delight I'm dedicating to our friend John, because he's faithful and he gives a lot of joy to us. And I want to read a little something that I found regarding flowers and flower arranging. In Japan, ikebana is a meditative form of flower arranging. It is a meditative form for deep contemplation and appreciation of floral art. In this vein, I want to dedicate my flowers, as I said, to our friend John, who masterfully showers meditative beauty on us with his music on Sundays. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Pam. I assume you all heard her, but for the people at home, Pam brought flowers for John due to his faithfulness, and that he is a joy to us in bringing his music to us.
I wanted to share a sorrow. One of my high school friends passed away from cancer on Monday. And while my sister and I were discussing it, she's much younger, but I was like, she was around a lot after my son was born. And while we were talking about it, she told me that her good friend's from high school's sister is very ill. And I wanted to share that with you all because it's one of Ernie Mills's daughters. And I know he was the minister here for a long time. But his daughter is very ill. That's all the details I have because we were talking about my friend Laura passing away. But I feel old every day, but also I feel too young to have so many high school friends that have passed away. And most of them have been from serious illnesses such as cancer or heart disease or mental illness.
Our hearts go out to you.
Could you repeat it?
I'll try. Tell me your name.
Alexia.
Alexia had a high school friend who passed away due to cancer, and during that time she had some contact with Ernie Mills.
Yeah, so my sister was good friends with Liddy Mills, who was Ernie's daughter that was my sister's age. And my sister told me that Liddy's sister, so one of Ernie's daughters that I don't know, but is very ill.
So you had that as a sharing
And I just
during
want,
the thing.
his friends and family to know that he may be suffering with a very ill daughter, and I know he has friends in this community, so I wanted to share that.
So she's asking us to keep Ernie Mills in your thoughts and prayers due to his daughter's illness. Others?
I just have one today for the flower ceremony, running 100 years strong. Just one of joy for that, for the beauty all around us.
Kevin is saying that he has a joy for the flower ceremony today and for the beauty all around us. We're sharing in that joy with you, Kevin. Any others? Yes, Gail.
I have a strange joy. I am very thankful for all the rain we've had, because we desperately needed it. And I'm glad it's over. Maybe over.
Okay, Gail is thankful for the rain that we had because we really needed it, and she's also thankful that it's now over. For a little while. Okay, for all of you who expressed joys, we celebrate with you. For those of you who brought your sorrows, we're here for you in loving support. Our chalice lighting this morning is from the words of Reverend Susan Frederick Gray. As we light our chalice this morning, may we be mindful of how radical and powerful love is, and how dangerous those who use fear perceive love to be. May we know how necessary and essential it is to keep alive the message of universal love, of humanity and human dignity, of reverence for life, all creation, in our hearts and in our actions, we are now among the keepers of that flame.
Good morning. My name is Kevin Lausch, and I get the joy of working with the kids at UUTC. And a couple weeks ago, we finished our Chalice Camp, which KT over there was a member of. And we had a wonderful time working to be superheroes and learning about the superheroes of our community, such as organizations like Sharing House, the fire department that keeps us safe, the rescue squad, things like that, and of course, the sheriff's office. And they all came out to give us a visit, which we really appreciate. And today, we're going to talk about, for our words wisdom, the fact that flowers can smile. We have a little bit of a tale on that we're going to read through, and this is from the Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh, and it's called "The Dandelion Has My Smile." So now, if you ever walk around and you see someone smile, it's more than just a little curve of the mouth or more than just someone thinking maybe a good thought. It's much more about presence, about awareness, about inner happiness. And if a child smiles or if an adult smiles, that's very important because it's contagious, more contagious than, thankfully, any virus out there. In our daily lives, if we can smile, if we can be a little peaceful, a little happy, then everybody around us profits from it because it affects their lives also. But the question is, how do we start the day with a smile, and how do we continue with a smile through the day? If we can remember to smile when we wake up, then it brings a little something special to that day. And to do that, we might do something like we might maybe hang a little sign next to our bed or stick a little Post-it note on our bathroom window, maybe even hang something on the ceiling right above our bed to remind us that there is a reason to smile. And hopefully we could develop that practice of smiling, passing on our presence, our awareness, our love to those around us. And if we get that memory going of how to do that, then we might smile when we hear a bird singing outside our window, or maybe we'll see sunlight streaming through that window and reminds us to smile. It reminds us to approach each day with thankfulness, with understanding, and with some love in our heart. And the Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh suggested that if we are smiling, we are dwelling in the awareness of right now. Because there's a lot of reasons to be unhappy and upset in this world. So many reasons that it could overwhelm us, it could weigh us down. But if we have a thought about what is good and right in the world, maybe that can bring a little smile to us. And the monk, he suggests that maybe we should think about somebody like the Mona Lisa, that famous artwork with just the little half smile on her face. It's almost as if she had the secret of happiness within her. And maybe that smile was because that painter, that artist, had a little smile inside them. Because who cannot bring what's in their heart into their work, into their lives, into their art, to share just a little hint of that smile? That smile relaxes our face, it banishes all thoughts and fatigues from us, it nourishes our awareness and our calmness, and it brings peace to our world and to those around us. And that peace is so important because sometimes that's what the world needs most of all. It needs some peace. And at the end of a retreat in California, Thich Nhat Hanh writes, a friend wrote a poem, and it's this: I have lost my smile. But don't worry, for the dandelion has it. For you see, all around us is reasons to smile. What's more than that, all around us brings gifts to us about smiling, about happiness to help us through. So if you've lost your smile and yet are still capable of seeing that dandelion, then it's keeping the smile for you, and it will remind you that the situation is not so bad, that peace and joy and happiness is nearby. That dandelion is actually a member of your community. All these flowers here are a member of our community, and it brings us smiles, it brings us peace and love into our hearts. Everything around us is actually keeping a smile for you. You don't need to feel so isolated. You don't need to feel that you're all alone or the weight of the world is going to be bearing down too much upon you. You only have to open yourself to the support that is all around you. Like a friend who saw her smile was being kept by the dandelion, you can breathe in awareness and your smile will return. For it's always been all around us. Now, Janice.
I believe I did skip the hymn. You should have yelled at me like you usually do. So I think at this time, before we do our offering, we will do our hymn. It will be on the screen. It's number 330 in the hymnal, "The Arching Sky of Morning Glows." We'll ask our ushers to come forward. Our offering outreach this month is to the Augustine Literacy Project. Thank you. And so the envelopes in the offering plates are for that particular thing. The rest of the basket will be filled with what you give to this community. As we approach this time for our offering, give what you will for the church that has meant so much to you, for the church that meant so much to those who came before you, and for the church that will mean so much to people you will never know. Give what you will, for you are a generous people. thank you for your generosity and your commitment to our church.
Good morning. I'm Krista Moore, and I'll be doing our readings today. And the first one is by Jess Reynolds, entitled Spring Prayer, from her book, Love Like Thunder. We are reflecting on the seasons changing from spring to summer, and so this prayer expresses some of that. Spirit of life, we come seeking stillness. The world is bursting with green, with frenetic energy and a desperate need to fill the empty spaces with life. We are bursting too, our hands frantic to fill the blank slots of our calendars and the empty spaces of our gardens. We all have leafless branches and flat, dark soil. There is no guarantee that we will sprout this year as we have before. Spirit of life, we seek your blessing. May your hands join ours as we tend our gardens, coaxing life from our sleeping seeds. May you sit with us in the quiet, settling our hearts into a space for waiting, taking in the sun and rain so that we too might bloom. Blessed be. And now we'll hear our own voices aged, singing For the Beauty of the Earth by John Rutter.
For the beauty of the earth, for the beauty of the sky, for the
Wasn't that lovely? Yes, I agreed. So our next readings were all written by Reverend Carol Martignaco, and the first two segments come from Blossom Time. It's said of the Buddha that one day, as his followers gathered to hear him preach, he rose and faced them, wordlessly holding forth a lotus blossom. In utter silence, as they waited for him to speak, he simply stood holding the flower, letting the blossom speak for itself and to them in its own language. After a while, the message of beauty penetrated the minds of his listeners. They heard the flower sermon and were blessed. We have all probably had the experience of walking through a park or down a street, and suddenly we find ourselves in the presence of a field of flowers. Perhaps you turn a corner and a garden is laid out before you like a banquet of color and form, and you are refreshed, dazzled, and somehow, by the sheer extravagance of beauty, you feel uplifted, your spirit renewed. And now this reading is from her book of Sacred Book of Nature. I love this. Okay. Once upon a time, long, long ago, it so happened, we don't know why, but way back around 250 million years ago, in the middle of the Mesozoic era, Earth decided to make flowers. Suddenly, at least in geologic time, the ever-creative spirit of life that some call God, or that process theologian Henry Nelson Wyman calls the creative interchange, decided Earth needed redecorating, maybe bored with the Jurassic landscape. Earth's decision to blossom changed everything. Seeds had existed for some time, such as those in spores or pine cones, but they depended upon the wind or animals to transplant and pollinate them. Flowering was a plant's way of forming a fruit to protect the seeds, a more successful pollination and reproduction process. So it was that gradually the first angiosperms developed and prevailed, spreading across the face of the earth, until about 125 million years ago, give or take a day or two, during the mid to upper Cretaceous period, fruit-bearing seeds began wildly diversifying, surpassing ferns, conifers, or evergreens as the dominant form of plant life. And it was beautiful. Evolution went right on, developing an equally diverse insect population to help pollinate the flowers, inventing insects that do much of the heavy work of pollination, and without them or the flowers, there'd be no food. You probably know the quote by Emerson, "Earth laughs in flowers." Can't you just see it? Earth as a living organism suddenly bursting into laughter, surprised into joy by its invention of flowers, not knowing it would lead to the many varieties of flowers we know today. Flowers in the long and creative run of evolutionary time gave rise to other forms of life, including mammals and eventually, most recently, humankind. Why tell this story? Flowers are not just ornamental, bringing us joy or comfort, decorating our lives, though for sheer beauty, they're beyond extravagant. We owe them our lives, for without them, so many other forms of life, including humans, would not exist. We're not only intimately related to them, we and our animal kin depend upon them for our very food. In this interconnected web of existence of which we are part, flowers are our ancestors, and we hopefully bear a likeness to them. So may it be true, as the Japanese Zen master Roshi Soen Nakagawa wrote, "In a blooming universe, all beings are flowers. And now we're going to hear about the story of the Flower Communion from Foothills Unitarian Church.
As a way of introducing the flower communion, flower ceremony, it started about 100 years ago, a little bit after World War I. Norbert Čapek and his wife, Maja, were living in Prague. They fled Prague to the United States during World War I, where they learned about Unitarianism. And Norbert and his wife both became Unitarian ministers and came back to Prague. Now, Europe after World War I was scarred. Many, many people died. Villages and towns were destroyed. Businesses ended. And Norbert was finding the people of his congregation and of all of Prague were really struggling. So many didn't have their basic needs met. There was heaviness and gloom weighing all over them. And so he was walking by the river Vatlana one day and wondering how he could help bring some joy and love into the heart of his congregation when he saw flowers blooming all around him in spring, even amongst the rubble, the cracked concrete, amongst the dirt. And he thought, well, maybe this was a way that he could have all the congregants, all the people, bring joy with them and disperse it back to everybody. And so this is the story of that first flower communion.
Nearly 100 years ago, the Unitarian minister Norbert Čapek offered his Czechoslovakian congregation a ritual to respond to their questions about how to be a community that welcomed rather than suppressed diversity. Czechoslovakia was a country formed in the aftermath of war, struggling just 5 years after the end of that war with questions of belonging and identity, trust and anxiety. Čapek's ritual took the traditional bread and wine communion that his community was too heretical for and too resistant to these usual symbols and played with this ritual. He turned instead to the beauty of nature all around them and invited each of his congregants to find a flower and bring it to the church one Sunday. That each person would find the flower that was beautiful to them was a symbol of their affirmation that each of us has a piece of the truth, our unique sense of what beauty means. On their way into the church, his congregation was in turn invited, each of them, to place that flower in a vase, which symbolized their free choice to enter into community alongside all the other people that saw beauty in their own way, symbolized by their flowers placed there as well. A free church where people freely choose to walk together across their differences. Once everyone had gathered, they'd bring the vase forward. Then the minister, Čapek, he would bless it. And then he'd invite everyone to choose a flower to take home with them, but just not the one that they came with. Again, this free choice affirmed each person's choice to be blessed by another and to receive with an open heart their different understandings of beauty and to feel connected rather than divided by this difference. In this moment where so many forces seek to divide people, to play on our fears of differences and our anxieties of the other, here we remember that we freely choose to walk together and to be blessed by the differences between us and to see these differences as beauty.
And now we will have our responsive reading, the consecration of the flowers. We will consecrate these flowers together to be distributed to all of us. And these are the words of Reverend Sarah Movius Schur. And then I will read the lines in blue and you'll read the lines in white. These flowers we see before us come in many shades and colors. They come in sizes and shapes. They carry different scents. Some have no scents at all. Yet all were created by the same miracle. The miracle that these blossoms grow every year out of their divine mixing of water, soil, and sunshine. Our lives are miracles as well. Come every year to celebrate Flower Communion. To be reminded that all of us have value and all have a place in the beauty of the world. To be reminded that where you came from is not as important as the fact that you are here now. To be reminded that all are welcome and all may receive the communion table of this church. We all are part of something greater than ourselves. Now I'd like to call our children forward to help us distribute the flowers. And whether you brought a flower or not, we want everyone to take at least one home, if not more, because the happiness, the beauty, the grace that is here goes with everybody.
For those who don't know, I am a retired Unitarian Universalist minister, and I have done this ceremony for many, many, many times. But this one is the most special because it was yesterday was the 100th anniversary of the Flower Communion, June 24th, 1923. As the Nazi occupation of Czechoslovakia and other countries continued, things got more and more dicey in Prague, and they finally arrested Norbert Čapek, put him in prison, and did medical experimenting on him. But he, with such a strong spirit, would stride around camp singing songs that he wrote at the top of his voice. One of them's in our hymn book, Father Spirit, Mother Spirit, where are you? If I knew the number, you could play it, but I don't know the number. So he was in the camp, and he was going around singing his songs to encourage the other people and give them hope. Well, he did die in the camp in 1944, and his wife, Maya, eventually came to the United States to live. One of the places she went to church was First Parish in Cambridge, Mass., which is the church where I was ordained, and had been the religious education director there for 4 years. One day, I was rummaging around in the attic. Now, this church is really, really, really old. And I was rummaging around in the attic, and I found this big basket. It had a wooden bottom and woven wicker around the outside, and it was painted dark green. Well, Maya Čapek had brought the Flower Communion to First Parish in Cambridge, and they made this basket to hold all the flowers. And we used it a few times while I was there, but that's the rest of the story.
And that was wonderful. Thank you. Our closing hymn is My Life is Made Worthwhile. And is that a recording? Yes.
From both the Prague Unitarian Church and from the International Unitarian Church in Prague. May God bless you, and may you have a happy, happy Flower Communion.
This was a hymn called My Life is Made Worthwhile by Norbert Čapek himself. And it was recorded by the Prague Unitarian Congregation in the Czech Republic and given as a gift to UU congregations celebrating the flower community ceremony. It was written in March 1942 while Čapek was imprisoned in the concentration camp at Dachau. This hymn is sung in Czech with English subtitles. You, as we did, remained seated. Our closing words are also from Norbert Čapek. In the name of Providence, which implants in the seed the future of the flower, and in our hearts the longing for people to live in harmony. In the name of the highest, in whom we move and who makes the mother and father, the brother and sister, lover and loner, what they are. In the name of sages and great religious leaders who sacrificed their lives to hasten the coming of the age of mutual respect. Let us renew our resolutions sincerely to be real brothers and sisters, regardless of any kind of bar which estranges us from each other. In this holy resolve, may we be strengthened, knowing that we are God's family, that one Spirit, the Spirit of love, unites us, and endeavor for a more perfect and more joyful life. Amen.